William Shatner, he is Captain Kirk, the face of one of the most iconic franchises in history, a true cultural legend. So you'd think the endless reruns of the original Star Trek would have made him ridiculously wealthy, right? Well, what if I told you that for years, while the show was becoming a global phenomenon, he didn't see a single dime from it? A single clause in his 1960s contract kicked off decades of financial frustration and legal battles. This is the untold story of how the man who was Captain Kirk got royally screwed by Star Trek. To understand how the captain of the Enterprise ended up with empty pockets, you have to beam back to the 1960s. Television was a totally different universe. William Shatner was cast as the dashing Captain James T. Kirk for a new sci-fi show called Star Trek. His contract was pretty solid for the time, paying him $5,000 per episode. But Hollywood contracts back then had a blind spot the size of a black hole: syndication. As Shatner himself later explained, nobody knew about reruns. The idea that a TV show would be played over and over for decades was just unthinkable. The unions that protect actors' interests hadn't yet secured the kind of residual fees that are standard today. A major strike eventually won those rights for actors, but the new rules only applied to shows made after 1973. Since Star Trek finished its run in 1969, the entire original cast was left out in the cold. While the salary was good for the era, Shatner admitted that, between a difficult marriage and raising 3 kids, he was basically broke when the series ended. The show that would make him a household name had failed to give him any long-term financial security. Things got even more complicated on set. While Shatner was the star, Leonard Nimoy's Mr. Spock became a surprise fan favorite, which led to a rivalry that would define their careers. To keep his 2 leads on equal footing, creator Gene Roddenberry and the studio put a special provision in their contracts: the Favored Nations Clause. This clause meant that whatever one actor got, be it a pay raise or a script change, the other had to get as well. It was a contractual attempt to maintain the peace, but this golden cage, designed to solve one problem, would soon create a multitude of new ones. After its cancellation in 1969, something incredible happened. Star Trek didn't just fade away, it exploded in popularity through syndicated reruns. It aired constantly, creating a massive, devoted fan base known as Trekkies. Yet, because of the timing of their contracts, the actors saw none of the profits. As Shatner bluntly put it, anything made before 1973 doesn't pay a cent in royalties. But the lack of rerun money was just the start. The real financial goldmine was merchandising lunchboxes, action figures, you name it. Paramount licensed it, generating billions in retail sales over the years. Yet the cast saw almost none of it. In a revealing example from the 1990s, 4 of Shatner's co-stars, James Doohan, Walter Koenig, Nichelle Nichols, and George Takei, sued Paramount over the use of their likenesses for decades without fair compensation. Their contracts promised them 2.5% of net profits from merchandising, but after years of the franchise's massive success, they had received less than $85,000 combined. They eventually settled for just $1 million to be split between them. Even Shatner and Nimoy had to fight the studio for their own cut of the merchandising fortune. This is where the Favored Nations Clause turned from a shield into a weapon, one that often backfired. As the franchise hit the big screen with Star Trek, the motion picture, Shatner and Nimoy were still contractually joined at the hip. When Nimoy, feeling typecast, was hesitant to return for more films, it created problems. But once he fully embraced the franchise and was given the chance to direct Star Trek III and the smash hit Star Trek IV, Shatner saw his chance. Thanks to the Favored Nations Clause, if Nimoy could direct 2 movies, so could he. Shatner invoked the clause and demanded his turn in the director's chair. It was a power play, born from a contractual obligation for equality. And it led directly to what many fans consider the franchise's lowest point. It's a classic Hollywood power play, the artist versus the system. However, before we delve into the disastrous result of Shatner's directorial debut, if you're finding this story fascinating, be sure to hit the subscribe button and ring the bell. We dive into the untold stories of Hollywood history every week, and you won't want to miss what happens next. Armed with the contractual right to direct, William Shatner took the helm for 1989's Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. The favored nations clause didn't just give him the director's chair, it gave him story approval, granting him massive creative control. He cooked up a story inspired by televangelists, which turned into a plot where the crew of the Enterprise literally goes in search of God. The result was a catastrophe. Producer Harve Bennett later said the film was doomed by its premise. The production was plagued with issues, a writer's strike slashed pre-production time, and the hefty $33 million budget mainly was eaten up by talent salaries, leaving little for effects. Paramount couldn't even afford its go-to visual effects house, Industrial Light and Magic, and had to hire a cheaper, less experienced firm that delivered shoddy results. The film was a critical and commercial failure. While it had the best opening weekend for a Star Trek film up to that point, its box office dropped a staggering 58% in its second week. It grossed only about $63 million worldwide on a budget of $33 million, a huge disappointment compared to the $133 million its predecessor earned. Many believe the film nearly killed the franchise. The very clause meant to guarantee Shatner's equality had led him to overplay his hand, creating a film that damaged his reputation and the franchise he led. This was the paradox of William Shatner's career. He was the face of a global phenomenon, but had to fight for scraps. He had contractual power, but it was so tied to Leonard Nimoy's career that he could never truly use it for himself without unintended blowback. So, how did he finally win? He played the long game. Unable to get his fair share from the original series, Shatner reinvented himself. He became a regular at fan conventions, something he once found undignified, but soon realized was a direct line to his audience and a source of income. He starred in other hit TV shows, including T.J. Hooker, and later Boston Legal, which earned him 2 Emmy Awards. And, most famously, he became the Priceline negotiator. Starting in 1997, he became the face of the travel website. A rumor circulated for years that he took stock options instead of cash and made a mind-blowing $600 million. While Shatner has repeatedly denied that number, his long association with Priceline undoubtedly secured his financial future in a way Star Trek never did. His net worth is now estimated to be around $100 million. William Shatner's journey with Star Trek is a cautionary tale written across the stars. As the legendary Captain Kirk, he was the face of a phenomenon, but bad contractual timing meant he missed out on the syndication boom that made so many others rich. He was the face on billions of dollars worth of merchandise, yet he and his castmates had to settle for a pittance. The favored nations clause, a contractual provision designed for peace, ironically led him into a creative decision that nearly derailed the film series. But the story doesn't end with him being screwed. It ends with his resilience. Shatner outmaneuvered his contractual mess by building a brand and a fortune through sheer force of will, finally embracing his iconic status on his own terms. His story is a testament to an actor who, despite being shortchanged by the system, boldly went on to define his own legacy and ensure that the man, not just the contract, had the final word.